guys, welcome to Office Blokes React. I'm Office Bloke Dave.
I'm Office Bloke Mike.
I'm Office Bloke Daz.
Collectively, we are the Office Blokes.
Snake Milkers.
Snake Milkers, apparently. That's my new metal band. We're trying to promote our TikTok a little bit. So if you do TikTok, just head over there, type in the Office Blokes, give us a follow. Trying to grow it, and if we ever end up getting a strike here again, then we'll post there for a week, and you'll still get your daily dose of the Office Blokes.
Good.
Hello, everyone.
Nice. Hi, guys. Right. Mike doesn't know what this one is. I got sent this and was given the context, and I did disclose it, a little bit of it, to Daz.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
This happened round the corner from here, and Mr. Ballen has done a story from it.
Less than a mile away.
All right.
It's literally the night it happened. I was at home, and I was probably 500 yards away in my house.
Let's watch it.
Yeah, so I won't give you any more than that.
All right. Okay.
But yeah, shout out to Mr. Ballen as well. I know he has commented on one of our videos, and absolutely love his vids.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, so let's get into it. This chat room kills people. Solved Mysteries, episode 2.
The case we're going to look at today is so messed up that British courts have banned all media outlets from ever revealing the true names of the people involved. As such, the names you're going to hear today have all been made up. But before we...
Dave Clark.
Hey, they've never disclosed who they were.
Well, they have now.
He has.
Sue me.
into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer to water the like button's plants while they're away on vacation, but instead of watering them, just crank their heat up to max and never come back. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's story.
I've not watched Mr. Ballen for ages. I'm buzzing
Been
off
a while,
this.
hasn't it? Yeah.
On June 29th, 2003, a 14-year-old boy named John and his best friend, a 16-year-old named Mark, were walking in this back alleyway behind a row of shops in Manchester, England. Mark had asked John to go back there, to which John was a little bit confused because it was just a dead end back there. But he went back there anyways because he figured, you know, Mark must have a reason. And so they're walking along this alleyway when Mark suddenly comes to a stop. Then he turns to face John, and John's looking at him inquisitively, and Mark just reaches out and grabs him by the shoulder before pulling out a huge knife and drives it into his stomach and says, "I'm sorry, bro." Pulls it out again, drives it into his chest before releasing it and letting John fall to the ground. As soon as John hits the ground, he looks up at Mark and he says, "You're killing me." And Mark says, "I had to do it. If you knew all the details, you would understand." And so after only a couple of minutes, John goes quiet and he's laying still on the ground, and Mark would stand there just waiting for about 20 minutes to ensure that John really was dead before calling authorities and claiming some madman had snuck up behind them and attacked his best friend, and you gotta send an ambulance as fast as you can. When the ambulance arrived, to Mark's horror, they were able to keep John alive, and they were able to get him to a hospital where he nearly died twice on the operating table, but he ultimately would make a full recovery. And when John was well enough to speak, he would tell police that Mark is the guy who attacked him, but he had no idea why. When Mark was confronted with these allegations that he was the one who attacked John, he quickly confessed. And the police thought, you know, this is a strange case, but pretty open and shut, and they arrested Mark for attempted murder.
You know where it was?
Yeah.
Goose Green.
Yeah.
Yeah, that row of shops.
All right, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that row of shops where the Monkey Tree and shops like that used to be, where the hospital is now. It was that little bit.
That's what I don't get about foreign ambulance. The hospital was right there.
No, the
wasn't
hospital
there
wasn't
then.
there.
Right, it wasn't there when
It's
this
before.
happened.
No.
It's when the old row of shops was there before they were demolished and hospital
okay.
built. So.
Right.
Yeah, it was just a big, mostly empty
Yeah, I
row
remember
of shops.
Cooper Sports and all that.
Yeah, Cooper Sports. And it was that little alleyway behind there that was proper grim and
My
dingy.
first job was down there.
Was it?
Well, I left school. I worked for a few months. I worked for a company called Boardman's. They're like a furniture shop.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And they had access out to the back alley there as well.
It's absolute madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually, when
Crazy.
I was a kid, similar time to this, I can't remember how the time frame marries up, was mugged right there as well.
There's been a few incidents in that same area over the past few years. Quite a few.
Yeah.
To be fair.
Yeah.
It's a big area for hangout for, there's about 7 or 8, well, I wouldn't say 7 or 8, it's probably 5 or 6 pubs, all in the same little vicinity of each other, and they all go outside, and it can cause all kinds of bother with whose chairs are who and who's sitting where, and it's a bit of a problem area.
When this happened, Goose Green, there was nothing there really. It wasn't like it is now.
Yeah, it was shops.
Yeah. Crazy story though.
Yeah.
Investigators began digging into the motive behind this attack. They, along with Mark, were not prepared for the totally bizarre story that unraveled. The judge in this case would say well-schooled fiction writers could not come up with the plot of this real-life story. And so this crazy story starts 4 months before the stabbing in February of 2003. In February of 2003, Mark was a 16-year-old student who was also a part-time dishwasher at a restaurant near his home in Manchester, England. Mark had okay grades, but even by his own account, he was nowhere near an academic. In fact, he was quite dim-witted. He was very close with his family, who all lived in a very modest home in a very modest neighborhood. By all accounts, Mark was living a very ordinary life. That year, Mark discovered an online chat room for teens in Manchester, England, and it was designed to, make friends and talk about fashion and sports. And initially, when he logged into this chat room, he was just watching. He wasn't really participating. But over time, he became a very active user, and in fact, became totally obsessed with this chat room and basically put everything else in his life on the back burner to the point where his grades were tanking and he was staying up all night. I mean, this really took over his life. Also in February of 2013, John was a 14-year-old student who lived in Manchester, England, but not near Mark, and at this point he had not met Mark yet. He was incredibly intelligent and polite and charming, and he was an excellent student, and he went to a very, very prestigious school. But while John's academic life was going really well, his home life was kind of in shambles. His mother had a series of really crappy boyfriends that always left, and they always left her feeling very depressed, and it was just a very sad environment around his mother. And John, unfortunately, had grown up believing one of his mother's ex-boyfriends was his biological father. And even though this boyfriend had abandoned the family, John at least knew who his dad was. But it would turn out his biological father had actually abandoned him when he was a brand new baby, and he had no way of figuring out who his dad even was. John really wanted to escape his home life. He wanted to just live somewhere else, have an adventurous, happy life away from all the sadness and depression he was around all the time. And so it was in that frame of mind that he discovered this chat room, the same one that Mark had discovered. Although they don't know each other yet, they're both entering the same chat room. John's initial interest in this chat room was not nearly as high as Mark's was. Mark pretty much immediately became obsessed with being in this chat room. John was a little bit more reserved, but his mom purchased a laptop for him, which suddenly gave him 24/7 access to this chat room, and he found himself going on there all the time, to the point where he was staying up all night and even skipping meals just so he wouldn't have to leave his screen even for a few minutes. The main focus of this chat room was supposed to be sports and movies and entertainment, but the real reason teenagers were flocking into this particular chat room was to flirt with each other. And Mark and John were no different. They both really enjoyed, these flirtatious interactions they were having with different girls on this chat room. But John's interactions with the girls was very friendly and wasn't going to go anywhere. It was not really intended to. Whereas Mark fell head over heels in love with the girl he was flirting with, and her name was Rachel. Rachel was a 16-year-old living in Manchester, England, who worked at a gym, and when Mark saw her pictures, he was just totally smitten with her, and he sent her a direct message, not really expecting her to write back. But she did, and she seemed at least somewhat interested in him. And that night, they stayed up all night chatting with each other, and Mark is just over the moon. For the next couple of days, Mark and Rachel were talking nonstop on this chat room. And then at some point, Rachel says, "Hey, I really want to introduce you to this guy I met on this chat. He reminds me a lot of you. I think you guys would get along great. His name is John." And Mark was like, okay, cool. So Rachel introduced him to John, and they hit it off right away. And the three of them formed their own separate chat thread outside of the main chat room. And very quickly, through this separate chat thread that they were on pretty much 24/7, Mark and John would become best friends, and Mark and Rachel would fall deeper and deeper in love with each other. Every time
It's such a weird. Does it still exist, this sort of subculture of chat rooms with people? I suppose
Omegle must do something.
Omegle, yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I remember doing it when I was like 12, 13.
What?
Omegle.
Oh, Omegle.
Yeah. No, going on chat rooms and you're just chatting to strangers. Like one of my mates from high school used to go on them a lot, and then he invited me to a chat, and then suddenly you're chatting to strangers, and it's like
We had it when we were kids,
Well, you mean go to the park and have a conversation with someone?
No, you used to have chat lines that you'd dial up, remember?
I don't think they were like that though, were they?
They were.
Were they?
Yeah, there were chat lines. You can dial them up, and people would just join in the chat. It was like group chat lines on the phone. They were like premium numbers. They're like, like sort amount per minute sort of thing.
I keep getting,
but everyone used to arrange to meet up and all that kind of stuff.
I never used them.
I keep getting an advert on Facebook for one of those, but it's a video chat service to meet strangers called JOI. Stands for Jerk Off Instructions. It's literally a whole segment. It's a whole genre.
Are you the one giving the instructions?
Oh yeah. Put it away. Put it away. No, but it's literally like it's are you lonely? Do you want to chat? But it's not sold as like I don't think it's a sex chat. I just think someone has got the branding completely wrong and named it the same as like the comment section on the targeted ads are amazing.
Yeah, you can imagine, can't you?
So you signed up?
Oh yeah, I own it. Got shareholder now. Also, I will say, shout out to Stacey for suggesting this because she texted me last night and said, you guys have got to do this. Cheers for that one.
Mark were in this chat room, they would use a web camera, but Rachel didn't have one. And initially that really frustrated Mark because he wanted to see his girlfriend in real time, but she said she didn't have the money to get one, and then she said she was shy, and so Mark's getting frustrated, but she says, Mark, come visit me. You don't live that far away. You can see me in real life in real time. And so initially Mark's excited, and he's talking to John about how excited he is to go see his girlfriend, but then he gets cold feet and he makes an excuse and he doesn't go. Rachel's disappointed, but she asks him again a couple more times if he'll come visit her, and every time he would agree, and then he would kind of chicken out. But after the last time he canceled on her, he finally got the courage up and he invited her to come visit him. And this is when she started getting cold feet. And they kind of went back and forth until they basically stopped asking to visit each other. And they just decided that their relationship was going to live online, even if there wasn't a web camera involved.
So Rachel's John.
I'm fairly certain. In fact, yeah, that is how it pans out. I think I watched a documentary on this years ago, and it really went into depth about a lot of it. And it even showed CCTV footage of the two of them walking through Goose Green. And I was like, I was fucking mugged there a couple of years ago right in front of that camera, and the police said there was no cameras. I was like, there must have footage of little me.
Maybe it's after you've been done that they put some in.
Getting my McDonald's taken off me by a couple of older rough guys.
couple of girls.
Couple of toddlers. To take it.
Yeah, I'm thinking if the red flag's got to go up. I've seen enough of these like catfish sort of like deals where the red flag's got to go up if someone says, "Oh, I don't have a webcam."
This was very early. That sort of stuff.
I don't give a shit. If the red flag goes up if you haven't got everyone's got a webcam in 2003. You know what I mean? It comes standard. Everyone has one. They were £4 to buy one.
I don't know when I got. I never had one. In fact, until I had a laptop, I never had a webcam on my computer.
Yeah. So you started getting hard-ons and it was like, bing, got one.
Don't people seeing me? Fuck that.
About 3 months after Rachel, Mark, and John had started their own separate chat thread, a new user popped up inside the main chat room. It was a fairly controlled group, so it was pretty easy to tell when there were new people added, and this individual only wrote in pink text. So he stood out, his name was Kevin, and he told the group that he was a stalker and that he had a foot fetish. And the group thought this guy was pretty weird, but they figured it was just, some kid trying to get attention. They didn't think much of him. But shortly after Kevin's arrival, Mark would get a private message from Kevin that said, "I know you're Rachel's boyfriend, and I'm her stalker, and I'm gonna hurt her." Mark didn't know what to do, so he just went to Rachel and he said, "Hey, I got this strange email from this guy named Kevin who says he's gonna hurt you and he's your stalker." And Rachel kind of made light of it and said, "Oh, just ignore that guy. I don't know what that's about." And John didn't know what to make about it either, so Mark just kind of ignored it. And then the next day, when Mark logged into the chat room, Rachel wasn't there. Now, Rachel always logged in at the same time that Mark did and that John did. It was very rare that she wouldn't be there. And so Mark asked John, have you talked to Rachel today? And John said no. And then Mark went into the main chat room and he asked some people in there if they had seen Rachel or talked to her, and they said no. And that's when Mark went into his email and he had another message from Kevin. This message, again, was about Rachel, but this time Kevin is saying he actually has Rachel hostage. And the only way he's going to release her is if Mark lets Kevin look at his feet, because again, he has that foot fetish. And so Mark, interestingly, does not go to the police. He doesn't tell anyone about this. He just says, "Okay, I'll do that." And so he lets him see his feet. And then Kevin writes back saying, "Okay, I've released Rachel." Later that day, Rachel came back online and she thanked Mark for what he did, but she felt really bad that he had to be kind of humiliated in that way. And she said, you know what, we really need to meet up. We need to see each other face to face. I want to apologize to you and give you a hug. And so they decide the next day they're going to meet up finally in town together. But the next day when Mark went to the rendezvous point, Rachel didn't show. In fact, after this missed meeting, Rachel never contacted Mark again. She just vanished. When Mark got back to his computer, he asked John, have you talked to Rachel? And he said no. And again, he went into the main chat room and he asked around and no one had heard from Rachel. And then a couple of days later, after just continued silence from Rachel, and Mark's really upset about this, he notices a rumor being passed around in the main chat room about how apparently one of the members of this chat room abducted and killed another member of the chat room. And Mark's thinking to himself, no way, that can't be about Rachel. But almost immediately after this rumor was kind of announced on the main chat, people started chiming in that they think it could be Kevin, the guy who writes in all pink, the guy who claims he's a stalker, and this girl Rachel, because they had both logged out around the same time and had not logged back in again. They were the only ones in this chat room that were that inactive. And then after that, dozens more users were commenting that this was actually true, that Kevin had indeed abducted Rachel and killed her. They'd heard about it in other chat rooms and at school, and all of a sudden, Mark's reality is just coming crashing down. And he feels so guilty that he probably could have done something to stop this, and he didn't. But then
it's such a fucking twisted manipulation, isn't it? It's so,
it's so strange, isn't it? I mean, the things they do these days online.
I mean, again, this was kind of early adopters, though. It wasn't this probably verging on 20 years ago, wasn't it?
It is 20 years ago, 2003.
Was it 2003?
Yeah,
Did he say 2003? Right.
Yeah. But what you're thinking there is, straight away, I'm thinking that Rachel, John, Kevin, all the same people.
Yeah.
It's one guy with all these screens up.
Yeah.
Giving it all
I bet there's still...
I think I know who it is.
Yeah.
I know people that've got all that going.
Really?
Yeah, and they're weird as fuck.
I was going to say,
and they live in that area.
There will be people still doing it these days.
Absolutely.
Doing things without a doubt.
Well, 2003, so I would have been... Would I have been 17?
Was it not 2013?
2003, he said.
Was it?
Yeah, so I would have been 17. And one of them was 16 and local, and then the other one's, I think, 14 and from a prestigious school, of which there's a couple around here, isn't there?
Yeah, around this immediate area,
yeah. I mean, it's
well, there's only really one round here.
Yeah,
two, maybe.
Boys' school, yeah, there might be two. I could have easily known them. Might still do. That's
If
the
you
crazy
skateboarded,
thing.
you probably know them.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's such a twist.
And they are weird, so yeah, you probably definitely know them.
Best buddies.
Interestingly, even though Mark was devastated, just crushed by what has happened, he just continued to log into the chat room and acted like nothing had happened. And John picked up on this strange behavior and began kind of delicately asking him, are you doing okay? But Mark made it clear he did not want to talk about it. And over time, the rumor about what happened to Rachel and Kevin just kind of left the chat room, and it just seemed like people moved on, including Mark and including John. Over the next month, John and Mark's relationship really strengthened. They continued to speak in that private chat, now missing Rachel, so they were only interacting with each other in there. And they even began meeting up in person and hanging out in real life. About a month after Rachel's disappearance, a new person popped up in the main chat. It was a woman. Her name was Janet, and she wrote in all capitals, and she reached out to Mark. And she said to Mark that she was a mother of two, she was married, she was 44 years old, she was a real estate agent, but secretly, she was a spy for the British Secret Service. And in fact, she was the third most powerful person in all of Britain, and she was contacting Mark because she was sent to recruit him. She told Mark if he agreed to work with her, not only would he become an agent like her, he would become fabulously wealthy, and he could be her boyfriend. Now, of course, to an adult, this sounds preposterous and sounds like an obvious scam. But you gotta remember, Mark at this time was extremely vulnerable. He's just lost his girlfriend under very suspicious circumstances, but no matter how it happened, she's gone, and he's still grieving her loss privately. And he's just not a very bright person, so he's kind of primed to be taken advantage of.
He's also
it's definitely one of your mates, this.
Also a very horny teenager, like all teenage boys are, and you've got what you think is fit older woman saying, You can have this whole. You can be James Bond, and then you can be my boyfriend.
Testosterone flying about left, right, and centre.
Get laid.
He just said though there, he's lost his girlfriend. There was no girlfriend.
No,
there never was.
In his head, there probably was, but
But that's why the thing is so twisted, because it's over such a drawn out period of time, and it's emotionally and psychologically breaking him down in one way, so he's malleable to manipulate him in another way, and like it's really it's like high level manipulation.
It's getting the trust of people, isn't it? That's a big part of it. This guy Mark trusts the other one, doesn't he? You know,
I'm thinking Mark definitely knows Nigerian princes.
Yeah, and he's won the lottery a couple of times. And
She was promising him all the things he wanted in life: status, money, romance. And so even though he didn't necessarily believe everything Janet was saying, he wanted to believe her, and so he went along with it. He did not tell John about his interactions with Janet, perhaps signaling that he didn't fully believe it and was maybe embarrassed to give away details, but we don't know. As soon as Mark told Janet he was prepared to work with her, she made him swear an oath through the chat, and then told him he would need to go to London for initiation, where he'd be meeting the Queen, amongst other dignitaries and officials. At this point, Mark asked a couple of qualifying questions, namely, how would I explain to my mom that I was just going to suddenly leave for a couple of days in the middle of the week and miss school? I have to give her a reason for that. And she would say, your mother will be looped in on this process. In fact, once you go to London for initiation, we'll be in touch with her, giving her progress reports on how you're doing, and you'll have 2 opportunities every day to call her. Feeling satisfied that this was in fact legit,
seems legit.
He told Janet, okay, when do you want me to go?
We'll tell her after you go. We'll tell your mum where you've gone.
Honestly.
Yeah, just don't tell her beforehand, because you'll ruin the surprise that you've gone to London to meet the Queen.
This is grooming at its finest.
It's just a bit, isn't it? Yeah.
Kids grooming kids, though. That's, you know.
Like I said, the disturbing thing is it's over a longer period of time as well, isn't it? You know, it's not just like an overnight thing. It's just keeping that pretense up, you know, month after month.
That's what it's grooming. It's like, that's how grooming works. You should know.
As someone who grew up in Altrincham my whole life, and we're filming this in Altrincham right now, I'm not surprised it happened in Altrincham. I'm really not.
There was a poll that just went out. Just go change the subject. There was a poll that went out the other day from the whole country, and they voted on every town in the country who's the most adulterous, and Trafford won.
Really?
Not just Trafford, Altrincham.
Wow.
Come top of the polls.
Yeah.
Most adulterous town in the country.
Really? Wow. Disgraceful.
Don't live around here anymore.
Me neither.
Mike?
And she said, well, there's a caveat. You have to pass a series of tests before you're going to be allowed to go to initiation. This is where Janet explained to Mark why he specifically was being recruited. She said his friend, John, was actually not named John. His real name was James Bell, and he was a very, very important person. But she couldn't say why until he passed his first test. And so Mark's very confused by this, and he says, okay, well, what's the first test? And she says, well, you need to demonstrate you can protect your friend, James Bell. And so I want you to escort him from his school to his dentist appointment tomorrow. You're going to be his bodyguard for 1 day, but you can't let him know you're his bodyguard. He can't know that you know his real identity. So if you can do that successfully, when you get back, I will explain to you why he is so important. At this point, Mark is very committed to this, so he says, yep, I'll do it. He reaches out to John that day, and he says, hey, can we hang out tomorrow? And John tells him, yeah, but I have a dentist appointment right after school, so maybe after that. And Mark says, oh, don't worry, I'll tag along for your dentist appointment. And John's like, great, I could use the company. So the next day, Mark meets up with John, aka James Bell, and he walks with him from his school to his dentist appointment. And he doesn't notice anything suspicious, so he doesn't need to do any bodyguarding duties. And after the dentist appointment, the two of them just go to a mall and they spend the rest of the day together. Once Mark got back to his house and opened his computer, there was a message waiting for him from Janet. And the message said, you know, we had agents following you and you did a great job. You passed your first test. Now I can tell you why James Bell, your friend John, is so very important. And she told him that at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean is this big safe that only a couple of countries know about, and inside of that safe is 568 billion pounds, and it belongs to the Queen. But only one person has access to that safe, and that person is James Bell. Literally, his body would need to be in front of the safe for its special scanner to scan him, recognize it as James Bell, and then it would open its door. Despite its implausibility, Mark believed this was real. Not so much because he naturally believed the safe at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean was real, but it was because he totally believed Janet was real. Janet had the ability to know what he was wearing, where he had gone that day, what he was up to. I mean, she seemed to know everything about him, and it's because she told him she has agents monitoring him all the time, disguised as bus drivers and teachers and mailmen, that basically he was under constant surveillance. And she explained to him that that's what happens when you're being recruited. We have agents watch you. So when Janet...
That also implies a little bit of duress, doesn't it? You know, if it's like... We've got agents watching you everywhere you go. He's already passed the test. There's already kind of momentum going in the loop. But we've got guys watching you all day. Yeah. So if you don't toe the line...
Yeah, you know what I'm wearing. Trouble. You know what I'm wearing and where I've been because you're John.
Precisely, yeah. Which a normal person
not bad.
Some people think the Earth's flat, for God's sake. So, there's people out there that can be manipulated.
You mean it's not?
No.
What are you talking about?
Oh.
I don't know. We'll leave it there. We'll leave it there.
You'll have to edit that out, won't you?
Yeah.
Mark, his final test, despite how shocked Mark was at what he had to do, he was willing to do it because he really believed he was doing it for the government. The test was simple. Mark needed to kill John, aka James Bell. And there
was actually a bit before that I think is left out for monetization reasons.
Oh, yeah.
But when they were on a bus together, he was told that part of his job was to perform sexual acts on him.
Right, okay.
So there was that part of it as well.
Which fell for that one as well.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Proper grooming, innit?
Oh, big time. Yeah, but then I can understand why you wouldn't talk. Oh, maybe you don't know about that bit. Yeah. It was in that documentary I watched on it anyway.
It's only you that knows that day.
Sorry, John.
Sorry, Dave.
No one else in the world knows
James,
that.
John.
You'd know because you'd see stab wounds on me.
Is that why you call James Bell?
It's the end of Bell.
Explained to him that James Bell actually had an inoperable brain tumor and he was going to die any day. And if the wrong country found out about this, they could steal his body after he died, and they could use his body to gain access to this safe. And so we need to preemptively end his life, take control of his body, and get that safe open. She told Mark if he completed this test, he would move on to the initiation phase in London, where he would meet the Queen, and he would get his first paycheck of £80 million, and he would officially become Janet's boyfriend. Mark is in so deep at this point, he is fully committed, and he says, yes, I'm prepared to do this. And she says, okay, your new name is Agent 47695, and you need to go buy a large knife. She said there was going to be an abort code for this test, which was going to be 6969, and if at any point he hears anybody say that to him on the day he's supposed to carry out this attack, that means it's off and do not do it. So on June 29th, 2003, around 11 a.m., Mark and John, aka Agent 47695 and James Bell, met at a bus station in Manchester. Mark took John down the alleyway that Janet had instructed him to go down to commit the stabbing, and she had assured him she would be one of the first people to arrive on scene. She would be dressed as a detective, and she would ensure he did not get arrested. And so once he was in position, Mark turned around, grabbed John by the shoulder, pulled out his knife, said he loved him, and then began stabbing him. When the police arrived, Janet was not there, and Mark, after giving his statement about what happened, was asking the police officers, when's Janet gonna be here? And no one knew what he was talking about. After John survived the attack and said Mark was the one who attacked him, Mark would tell police, you gotta find Janet. She's the one who can explain what's going on here. But Janet never arrived because Janet didn't exist. Neither did Rachel. Neither did Kevin. Neither did James Bell. Neither did 189 other accounts that Mark interacted with on a daily basis inside of that chat room.
It's fucking crazy.
Wow. All of those fake accounts were determined to be controlled by one person, and that one person was John. When John was confronted with all these confiscated chat logs that clearly showed he was behind all of these accounts, he confessed. John said he never entered this chat room in order to do any of the things he did or, to manipulate Mark. He said when he joined, he just saw a picture of Mark and was kind of in love with him and wanted to get closer to him but didn't know how. So he created Rachel in order to get closer to Mark, but then became jealous of Mark's love of Rachel. So he killed off Rachel using Kevin.
It was him.
And he didn't expect Mark to believe it. He thought he would pick up that this is all made up when he's involving this stalker that's abducting and killing Rachel. But when he saw Mark totally believed it, John realized, wow, Mark's pretty gullible. I wonder what else I can get him to believe. And before long, he created Janet, who had complete control over Mark. And originally, John was using Janet to make Mark spend more time with John. He was going to be the bodyguard of James Bell, which was really John. When John started to feel guilty about what he was doing to Mark, he realized there was no good way out of this without kind of exposing himself and definitely losing his friendship to Mark, something that in a weird way he really, really cherished. And so he decided that the only way to end this was for him to die. And that's when he had Janet flip the script from protect James Bell to kill James Bell. And even on the day where he was going to get attacked, he had given that abort code. So maybe some part of him thought, I don't necessarily want to go through with this. But he never used the abort code. He was literally prepared to die to protect that relationship with Mark. Mark might have had suspicions that something was up with Janet or even Kevin or Rachel, but he never suspected John was behind any of these accounts. He learned about this betrayal when they were in court, and John is confessing once again to being behind all of these people that Mark had been interacting with. Apparently in court, when Mark is hearing this for the first time, he was just standing there, mouth open, just completely dumbfounded that he's hearing this. And then he would say afterwards, I've been such a fool. Mark was convicted of attempted murder, but he only spent 8 months in jail, and then he was given a 2-month probationary period where during that time, he could only go on the internet with supervision, and he wasn't allowed to enter into any chat rooms. John was convicted of inciting his own murder, which no one else has ever been charged with, so this is his first. And he was not given any jail time, but he was given 3 years of probation, where in that time, he was not allowed to use the internet without supervision, and he also was not allowed to enter into any chat rooms. And both boys were told they had a permanent restraining order on the other. So for the rest of their lives, they will never interact. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us...
Great storyteller, Mr. Ball.
Yeah, he is brilliant, isn't he? Can you imagine being a detective on this?
I'm thinking we will know who this is.
It's a very strong possibility I do, because they're very similar age to me in the exact same area.
I'm going to find out who it is. Can't be hard to find out.
I mean, there's sort of a gagging order on absolutely everything. There's no... I think even it'll be redacted in the court documents, I bet, who they are.
But I know police officers, so I can ask them.
Yeah. You know, what he didn't say there was... I heard a psychologist break it down, and there's some sort of shared psychosis disorder or something where essentially they're classed as two completely normal people now, and there's just this phenomenon where the two of them together create this perfect storm for a situation like that. But the theory is, as long as they never interact with each other again, they'll both live normal lives separately.
Yeah, it'd be good if you get one of them in for a podcast. Just blur the face out a little bit.
Yeah, it's such a scary... Like I say, I mean, I would have been 17 then, and he was 16, and from the same area. But then the 14-year-old, I presume, was from out of town.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
But it's terrifying, that, isn't it?
Crazy, isn't
Crazy
it?
levels of manipulation.
I mean, how many? 170 odd different accounts he's made up as well. I mean, to keep that going and chatting in different ways.
That's like Davy's subscribers on our channel. It's up to 176,000 now.
Yeah, I've got loads of YouTube accounts.
Yeah, it's absolutely it's just mind-boggling, really. The lengths he went to, and to get him to sort of like stab himself as well, or to stab him.
That's the thing that blows my mind so much about this is he at any point could have said the code word, and he was stood there knowing he was about to get stabbed.
And just went through with it, didn't he?
He said the only way out of it was to end his life. So he was quite happy to end his life and go through with it all. Yeah. And even went to the point of when he was getting stabbed, he thought, oh, this is what I need. This is what I expect. Yeah. This is what has to happen.
It's got that out of hand. Yeah. That this is...
I'm wondering who this is now. It's going to bother me. I'm going to find out.
I've wondered about this ever since it happened. I mean, not in recent years. I've not given it that much thought, to be fair. But especially when it happened, I was looking at people like, that's my peer group, essentially.
Everyone that walks past you now.
I'm from.
John, Kevin, James.
Just shout it out randomly so someone turns round.
It'd be good if it was their names, wouldn't it? Pseudonyms. Turn around and go, what, you mean me, the guy that stabbed the guy? Yeah, of course.
I'm sure we'll find out who that is. Won't be hard to find out.
I do know and have known people of that age when I was growing up that have had quite severe issues, mental health issues and stuff, and at least two.
All four of you?
No. I knew at least two people growing up that had fit that profile. and will be the same age, and went on to be off their chops for the next few years.
But I don't think they were, though, were they? By the sound of it, they're saying that if they're separate apart, then they're not like that.
That's what that psychologist said about them. But I don't know, because they don't know who they are. Even the psychologist isn't going to know who the kids are. So they're kind of probably assuming that everything was all right after that.
Weird that. It's weird that he fell for it.
It's so strange that really is.
It's crazy.
He should have put in time for at least 12 months for falling for it. You know what I mean?
I'm sure. I'm surprised the other guy didn't go to prison for inciting him to murder, because basically that's what he did, really, wasn't it?
There's probably no legal precedent, though, is there? Inciting your own murder.
Yeah.
It's just.
Plus, I suppose he was a 14, he was a minor as well, so maybe that swung it.
Yeah,
made it a bit different. I don't know, but it's so strange that you just couldn't make it up, could you?
It's madness. And what a great storyteller as well.
Oh, he's brilliant.
I'm surprised there's not been a film about it, actually.
I
don't think, not that I know, there has been anyway.
That documentary I watched was at least 10 years ago, and it was really good. It was really in depth about it. I think it was just randomly on TV one day, and I was going, no way, CCTV footage of Goose Green.
There's another documentary that's just come out called "Killed by a Rich Kid,"
and that's the
same area,
and also a prestigious school, wasn't it?
Yep.
I wonder if it's the same prestigious school.
That's what I thought before. I thought the same. And they mention it in the Killed by a Rich Kid. If you want to research it was on Channel 4 in the UK. Just come out about 3 days ago from when we're filming this. So quite interesting. What happened there? Got away with murder.
I know. It's a travesty, that.
It is.
Allegedly.
No, he got away with murder.
Well, he did. He killed someone and got away with it. Yeah. So
let him come after me.
You want him to, don't you?
Hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget, like and subscribe, hit the bell, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers. Guys.